Hello everyone, it's KidABackwardz here with the reading of Dead Bart. Yeah, this past is really stupid, let's get into it. You know how Fox has a weird way of counting Simpsons episodes? They refuse to count a couple of them, making the amount of episodes inconsistent. The reason for this is a lost episode from season 1. Finding details about this missing episode is difficult. No one who was working on the show at the time likes to talk about it. From what has been pieced together, the episode's production number was 7G06 and the title was Dead Bart. The episode labeled 7G06 "Mourning Lisa" was made later, and given Dead Bart's production code to hide the latter's existence. It was also written entirely by Matt Groening. During production of the first season, Matt started to act strangely. He was very quiet and seemed nervous and morbid. Mentioning this to anyone who was present around Matt at the time resulted in them getting very angry, and forbidding you to ever mention it to Matt himself. I first heard of it at an event where David Silverman was speaking. Someone in the crowd asked about the episode, and Silverman simply left the stage and ended the presentation hours early. In addition to getting angry, asking anyone who was on the show about Dead Bart would cause them to do everything they could to stop me from directly communicating with Matt Groening. At a fan event, I managed to follow him after he spoke to the crowd, and eventually had a chance to talk with him alone as he was leaving the building. He didn't seem upset that I followed him. He probably expected a typical encounter with an obsessive fan. When I mentioned the lost episode, though, all colour drained from his face and he started trembling. When I asked him if he could give me any details, he sounded like he was on the verge of tears. He grabbed a piece of paper, wrote something on it, and handed it to me. He begged me never to mention the episode again. The piece of paper had a website address on it. I'd rather not say what it was for reasons you'll see in a second. I entered the address into my browser and came to a site that was completely black except for a line of yellow text, a link. I clicked on it, and a file started downloading. Once the download was complete, my computer went crazy. The worst virus I'd ever seen. System restore didn't work, and then the entire computer had to be rebooted. Before doing this, I copied the file onto a CD. I tried to open it on my now empty computer as I suspected there was an episode of The Simpsons on it. The episode started out like any other, but had very poor quality animation. If you've seen the original animation from Some Enchanted Evening, it was similar, but less stable. The first act was fairly normal, but the way the characters acted was a little off. Homer was angrier, Marge seemed depressed, Lisa was anxious, and Bart appeared to hate his parents. The episode was about the Simpsons going on a plane trip. Near the end of the first act, the plane was taking off. Bart was falling around as you'd expect. However, as the plane was about 50 feet off the ground, Bart broke a window and was sucked out. At the beginning of the series, Matt had an idea that the animated style of the Simpsons world represented life, and that death made things more realistic, hence why it was used in this episode. The picture of Bart's corpse was barely recognizable. They took full advantage of it not having to move and made an almost photorealistic drawing of his dead body. Act 1 ended with a shot of his corpse. Act 2 starts with Homer, Marge, Lisa crying at a table. The crying went on and on, becoming more pained and realistic, better acted than you'd think possible. The animation started to decay as they cried, and you could hear murmuring in the background. The characters could barely be made out. They were stretching and blurring, looking like deformed shadows with random bright colours thrown on them. There were faces in the window flashing in and out so that you were never sure what they looked like. The crying went on for all of Act 2. Act 3 started with a title card saying 1 year had passed. Homer, Marge and Lisa were skeletally thin and still sitting at the table. There were no sign of Maggie or the pets. They decide to visit Bart's grave. Springfield is a wasteland, as they walk to the cemetery, the house become more and more decrepit. They all look abandoned. When they got to the grave, Bart's body was lying in front of his tombstones, looking just like it did at the end of Act 1. The family started crying again. Eventually they stopped and just stared at Bart's body. The camera zooms in on Homer's face, and according to summaries, he tells a joke, but it isn't audible in the version I saw, so you cannot tell what he's saying. The view zoomed out as the episode came to a close. The tombstones in the background had the names of every Simpsons guest star on them. Some that no one had heard of in 1989. Some that hadn't even been on the show yet. All of them had death dates as well. For guests who died since, like Michael Jackson and George Harrison, the dates would be when they would die. The credits were silent and seemed handwritten. The final image was the Simpsons family on their couch, like in the intros, all drawn in the hyper-realistic style of Bart's corpse. A thought occurred to me after seeing the episode for the first time. You could try to use the tombstones to predict the death of living Simpsons guest stars, but there was something odd about most of the ones who haven't died yet. All of their deaths are listed as the same date. Written by K. Simpson, uploaded August 8th, 2010. Okay, now 2010. So yes, that was Dead Bart, a pretty fucking awful creepypasta, because, yeah, it's just a typical, gory, lost episode that most people stereotype this community. Give it a 4 out of 10. And yeah, so those are the readings for Phase 1 done. See you in the Phase 1 finale. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.